Trump's tariff policy means more miners will be made in America. One team is working to make sure Bitcoin survives a quantum era, and local leaders in France reject plans for a new mining facility despite national support. And stick around to the end of the video for an urgent discussion about the largest password data breach in history and what you can do to protect yourself here on The Effect. Hi, I'm Nate Martin, and this is the Bitcoin Effect. President Trump's latest round of tariffs has already started reshaping Bitcoin's global mining infrastructure. Chinese mining rig manufacturers are now ramping up production and assembly inside the United States to avoid the new 25% tariffs on imports from China. Major players like Bitmain, MicroBT, and Canaan, who supply a massive share of the world's mining machines, are setting up or expanding U.S.-based facilities to bypass the import duties. MicroBT, for example, is producing its WhatsMiner rigs in Pittsburgh and Houston, while Bitmain and Canaan are pursuing similar moves. This shift could have a major impact on how and where Bitcoin mining equipment is built, potentially bringing more of the industry's infrastructure under U.S. control. It's also part of a broader trend toward reshoring supply chains and reducing geopolitical risk. A new Bitcoin-focused nonprofit called Project 11 is raising $6 million to defend Bitcoin from potential quantum computing attacks. The group is launched by former FBI and NSA cybersecurity veteran Greg Foss and cryptographer Luke Dasher, one of Bitcoin's longest-serving developers. Their goal is to prepare Bitcoin's infrastructure for a future where quantum computers might be able to crack today's cryptographic algorithms. Quantum threats aren't imminent, but Project 11 wants to get ahead of the curve. They're funding open-source development of quantum-resistant tools and protocols to ensure Bitcoin's long-term security and resilience. Some in the Bitcoin community remain skeptical about how urgent the quantum threat really is, but the effort reflects growing interest in future-proofing Bitcoin's core technologies, especially as adoption expands and the stakes get higher. A regional council in northeastern France has rejected a proposal to build a large-scale Bitcoin mining facility in Moselle. The project, led by a company called Cryo Mining, would have used surplus energy from a nearby steel plant to power more than 10,000 mining rigs, repurposing industrial infrastructure that had been left behind when the plant shut down. Local officials cited concerns about high power usage, potential strain on the grid, and what they called unclear economic benefits. But those objections don't quite add up. In places like Texas, miners are already integrated into the grid as flexible load, able to shut down when demand spikes. And when a facility like this generates jobs, tax revenue, and infrastructure investment, well, the economic upside is anything but vague. What's more confusing is that this local decision runs counter to France's broader national energy policy, where members of the National Assembly have even proposed studying Bitcoin mining as a way to absorb surplus nuclear power. But in Moselle, local officials just blocked a project that checked all the boxes: clean energy, brownfield redevelopment, and public revenue. It could be one of the first cases in Europe where local leaders are pushing back against a national policy that's willing to entertain Bitcoin as part of its fiscal and energy strategy. A new Bitcoin Treasury initiative is gaining traction, this time from a Norwegian firm called K33. The company just launched an $8 million private share issue with a very specific goal: convert as much of that capital as possible into Bitcoin for long-term holding. This isn't a fund or a trading vehicle. K33's plan is to hold Bitcoin directly on its corporate balance sheet, similar to what MicroStrategy has done, but at a much smaller scale. The company says it views Bitcoin as the soundest monetary asset available today, and they believe that over time, shareholders will come to value the Treasury strategy as much as the underlying business itself. It's the latest example of companies betting on Bitcoin not just as an investment, but as a foundational part of their capital strategy. And as more firms follow suit, it could further tighten Bitcoin's already limited supply. More than 16 billion stolen usernames and passwords have been discovered across 30 databases in what experts say may be the largest credential leak ever. These weren't from just one breach. They're a compilation of login data, many harvested through malware, and they're already circulating on dark web forums. The list includes credentials from major platforms like Apple, Google, Facebook, and Telegram, putting billions of users at risk of phishing, identity theft, and unauthorized account access. It's a serious reminder, especially for Bitcoin holders, to lock down your digital security. Use a password manager, enable two-factor authentication, and it's an important reminder not to leave your Bitcoin on centralized exchanges. If you hold your own keys in cold storage, your Bitcoin is protected, even if someone else's database isn't. That's it for this edition of the Bitcoin Effect. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next episode. We'll see you next time.